The sound that changed everything wasn't the kiss. It wasn't even her laugh. It was the sharp tap of her ring against the restaurant's glass window when she froze mid-kiss and spotted me outside with my phone raised. That metallic click still echoes in my head like a gunshot. I hadn't planned to be there. I wasn't spying. I wasn't lurking. I was literally 2 blocks away at the hardware store, picking up screws for a cabinet door, when I noticed her car parked outside Carson's taproom. My stomach dropped because she told me she was too tired to go out that night. So yeah, I parked. I looked through the window, and there she was. Her lips locked on someone else's. I couldn't move. My chest felt like it was caving in. The only thing I managed to do was raise my phone with trembling hands, trying to catch even one blurry photo. Some pathetic proof that I wasn't hallucinating. That my worst fear wasn't just paranoia. That's when she saw me. She shoved the guy away so fast his glass tipped over. Her eyes widened like she'd been caught shoplifting, not cheating. Then she bolted, through the door, across the sidewalk, straight to me. "Elliot, please, listen," she begged, yanking at the passenger handle of my truck. "It was just a kiss. It didn't mean anything. Let me in so we can talk." I should have driven off. I should have let her stand there in the cold with her lipstick smeared and her excuses falling apart. But I froze again, like the coward I've always been in this marriage. I unlocked the door. She slid in, breathless, smelling like wine and guilt. And the very first words out of her mouth weren't, "I'm sorry." They were, "If you'd just stayed home tonight, none of this would have happened." That was the moment I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a story she'd been living long before I showed up at that window. And the car ride home, that's where the real unraveling began. We didn't say a word for the first minute of the drive. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was sharp, loud in the way only guilty silence can be. She was breathing heavy beside me, like she had just finished sprinting, but I knew it wasn't from the short jog out of the restaurant. It was panic. Panic that her secret life had finally spilled into mine. I kept both hands on the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to earth. My knuckles were white. My chest was buzzing. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, but her voice cut through it like a blade. "I didn't sleep with him," she said, quietly at first, almost rehearsed. "It's not what you think. It was impulsive. A stupid moment. I was drunk. He kissed me." That lie was so thin I could see through it while staring at the road. I hadn't even responded yet, and she was already giving me the movie version, the damage control draft. I kept my eyes forward, pretending not to notice the lipstick still smeared near the corner of her mouth. It wasn't the shade she normally wore. It was darker, bolder, something she put on for someone else. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed her to speak without my prompting. I needed to see how far down the rabbit hole she was willing to drag me with her. And sure enough, she kept going. He's someone I talk to at work. We have lunch sometimes, but that's it. Nothing physical before tonight. It just got out of hand." I looked at her, just briefly, long enough for her to see the disbelief in my face. And maybe, for the first time, I saw it in hers too. Fear. Not fear of me. I'm not the yelling type. But fear that I wasn't buying it. Fear that the "forgive me, baby" act wasn't landing. "You don't believe me," she whispered. I pulled up at a red light and finally turned to face her. "Who is he?" I asked. My voice was calmer than I expected. Flat. Tired. Like the question had aged 100 years on its way to my lips. She looked down at her lap, fiddling with the hem of her sleeve. "His name is Colin. Is he married?" "No." That answer came fast. Too fast. It meant she had already asked. Already checked. Already knew the door to him was wide open. She wasn't caught up in a single moment. She was testing how far she could go before the guilt stopped her, and clearly, it hadn't. We pulled into the driveway, and for a second, I considered staying in the car. Maybe sleeping there. Maybe just reversing back into the street and never coming back. But she reached out and placed her hand gently on my arm. "Please, Elliot, don't walk away yet. I swear I'll tell you everything. Just let me explain. All of it." I stared at her hand on me like it didn't belong there anymore. "Then don't lie this time," I said. We got out of the car and stepped into the house like strangers. I sat down at the kitchen table. She poured herself a glass of water, took a shaky breath, and then said something that hit me harder than the kiss ever could. She said, "It started 4 months ago. But the kiss tonight, that wasn't the beginning." And just like that, everything I believed about my life began to fall apart. She sat across from me at the kitchen table like we were in some kind of negotiation. Same table where we'd carved pumpkins, where we fought over paint colors for the living room, where I once placed a small velvet box with a ring inside, while her mom secretly filmed from the hallway. That table felt like it had absorbed every version of us, and now it was watching us dissolve. Corinne wasn't crying. Not yet. That surprised me. I always thought if something like this ever happened, if she got caught in something this dark, she'd be hysterical. She'd be sobbing and shaking and throwing herself at my feet. But instead, she looked defeated. Not guilty. Not broken. Just tired of hiding. I didn't mean for it to happen, she began. Again, still treating the truth like it was a fragile glass she had to place carefully in my hands. It wasn't like we planned it. We were just talking a lot. He was going through a breakup, and I was unhappy. I interrupted, the first time I really raised my voice. Not yelling, but sharp, direct. You were what, Corinne? Lonely? Bored? Starved for attention? You could have told me. I tried to, she shot back. You always brushed it off. Every time I said I felt distant from you, you told me to get some sleep, or that it was just stress. No, I told you to talk to me, I said, shaking my head. But instead you gave someone else that part of you. She looked down, swallowing hard. Then she reached into her bag, same leather one she takes to her co-working space every day, and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I thought for a second she was handing me a letter, but when I opened it, my stomach turned. It was a printed calendar. For months' worth of small, highlighted boxes. Dates circled, some marked with just a letter C, and others with black outlines. Like she'd been logging her deceit. Like her betrayal was a business plan she'd been fine-tuning. I kept track, she said, voice barely audible. I know that sounds horrible. I'm not proud of it. But I needed to remember what was real and what wasn't. What was real? I repeated, stunned. You needed a spreadsheet to sort out your lies? Her face went pale. She looked like she was going to be sick. I wanted to stop. I did. I tried pulling away. But every time I tried to tell you the truth, you looked so trusting, so tired. And I felt like if I shattered your world, I'd be the villain forever. You are the villain, I said flatly. We sat there, the paper between us like a landmine. I couldn't stop looking at it. Tuesdays, Thursdays, 2 random Saturdays. Lunches that weren't lunches. Work calls that were probably hotel rooms. The neatness of it made it worse. The structure. She planned her betrayal like it was a second job. But what crushed me the most was this one line, dated 3 weeks ago. The day after our anniversary. She had written, in parentheses, Elliot cooked. I almost told him. Didn't. That line felt like a dagger. Because I remember that night. I made chicken parmesan, even though I'm terrible at it. She smiled. She kissed my forehead. We watched The Martian on the couch and fell asleep holding hands. While she was actively choosing him. Every part of me wanted to scream. To flip the table. To cry. But I didn't. I just stood up slowly, took the paper, and walked to the garage. Where are you going? She asked, standing up like she might follow. I need air, I said. If I stay in this house another minute, I'm going to say things I can't unsay. But the moment I opened the garage door, I saw something I hadn't noticed earlier, and it shook me even worse than the calendar. On the back seat of her car, half buried under a jacket, was a gift bag. Neatly folded tissue paper sticking out of the top. The tag said, Colin, you deserve to feel seen. It wasn't just cheating. She loved him. I stood there in the dim light of the garage, my fingers tightening around the thin, twisted paper handles of the gift bag like I was holding something radioactive. You deserve to feel seen. That's what the tag said, written in her handwriting. I'd know those curled E's and soft, rounded O's anywhere. She used to leave sticky notes like that on my lunch containers. Good luck today, or I'm proud of you. Somewhere along the way, I guess she ran out of kind things to say to me and started writing them for someone else. The weight of the bag felt unbearable, even though it couldn't have weighed more than a pound. It was navy blue with gold accents, like it came from some boutique that catered to people with aesthetic tastes. I was too nauseous to open it right away. My mind was already racing with guesses. Cologne? A sweater? A framed photo of the two of them that she took while I was fixing our dryer or waiting up for her late at night. I felt like a madman standing there, breathing shallowly, arguing with myself about whether or not I had the right to open a gift not meant for me. But that question faded quickly, because the second I peeked inside, I saw something that turned my knees to rubber. There were two items. A bottle of cologne, I was right about that, and a small black notebook. The cover was worn like it had been thumbed through dozens of times. I pulled it out, opened the first page, and instantly felt sick. Inside were small entries. Not long ones. Just bullet points. Quick thoughts. Observations. Feelings. Most of them dated. The handwriting wasn't hers, it was his. This was his notebook. And she had it, which meant she had been reading it, keeping it, treasuring it. I flipped through the pages faster now, my breath quickening, the words blurring together in my panic. But one entry stopped me cold. October 4th, she told me she's never laughed that hard with anyone, not even her husband. That's how I knew I wasn't just a fling. I don't know how long I stood there staring at that sentence. My brain kept rereading it like a glitching record. I felt something inside me cracking in slow motion. I wasn't even angry at him. I didn't know him. I couldn't hate a stranger. But reading how he saw my wife, how she spoke to him about me behind my back, like I was some forgettable supporting character in her real story, that nearly broke me. Eventually, I walked back inside the house. She was still at the kitchen table, hands clenched, head low like a child waiting to be scolded. I didn't say anything. I just dropped the notebook in front of her and watched the color drain from her face. "You kept his journal," I said flatly. "That's more than just a mistake, Corinne. I didn't mean for you to see that. Is that really your defense?" I snapped. That I wasn't supposed to see it? That if I'd just minded my business and stayed in my lane like a good little husband, you could have kept playing house while writing love letters with someone else? She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away like she'd slapped me. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice trembling now. "No," I replied, "it's exactly what I think. And the worst part? You didn't even try to hide it anymore. You wanted me to find out, didn't you? You left that bag in plain sight. The calendar, the kiss, all of it. You're done pretending. I'm just the last thread you haven't cut yet." She started crying then, quiet at first, then heavier. But the tears didn't land like they used to. They didn't disarm me. They didn't soften me. They only filled the room with a sense of finality. Because for the first time, I realized she wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry I found out before she was ready to let me go. "I didn't mean for you to become invisible," she whispered. But she had. She had erased me in slow motion. Smile by smile. Excuse by excuse. Night by night. And now, standing in my own kitchen with a stranger's words echoing in my head, I realized I hadn't been a husband in months. I'd been a placeholder, a fading photograph in a frame she stopped dusting. And yet, I wasn't done. Because what she confessed next, between sobs, between stammered apologies, changed everything I thought I knew about the man she was seeing and what they were planning next. Her hands trembled as she clutched the notebook like she could somehow pull the words back inside of it, like if she just squeezed tight enough, none of this would be real. But it was. All of it. The cologne. The calendar. The laughter that wasn't mine. Her betrayal wasn't a one-night slip. It was a carefully constructed parallel life, and I'd just stumbled into the wrong dimension of my own marriage. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. I let out a dry laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only noise I could make that didn't involve breaking something. "When? Before or after your housewarming party?" Her eyes snapped up, red and wide. "What are you talking about? You left the Zillow tab open on your laptop last week." It was a listing for a condo, 2 bedrooms, walking distance from his office. At the time, I thought it was just a dream scroll. But then I saw the printed lease papers in your glove compartment when I went looking for the garage remote last month. I didn't say anything. You know why? Because I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous husband who spies on his wife. So I told myself it was a work relocation or some freelance thing you didn't want to jinx. But now it all makes sense. She looked like she was going to pass out. Her lips parted, but no words came. And then, finally, she nodded. Slowly. The barest movement. "I put his name on the lease," she said. My chest tightened so violently I had to sit down. "You put his name," I repeated. "You signed a lease with him while still married to me." "I didn't think it would go through," she said too quickly. "I didn't think I'd actually." "Stop," I cut in. "Just stop. I'm done pretending you tripped and fell into this. This wasn't a one-time kiss. This was you building an escape route while I was still inside the house." She broke then. Not a gentle unraveling, but a full collapse. Sobs racked her body as she clutched her arms like they were the only things holding her together. I wasn't happy, Elliot. I felt like I was fading. Every day I'd wake up and it was like I was watching myself play a part one didn't audition for. You were kind, you were good to me, but you never saw me. I blinked. Never saw you? I built my life around you. I fixed things before they broke. I put gas in your car. I folded your laundry because you said hangers stressed you out. I watched shows I hated just to hear you laugh. If you felt invisible, Corinne, it's because you closed your eyes. The room went quiet again, but not the kind of quiet that leads to healing. This silence was chemical, thick, and dangerous. We both knew too much now. After a long pause, she sat down across from me again and whispered something I didn't expect. He told me I should leave you after the first month. What? Colin. He said I was lying to everyone by staying. That I was emotionally cheating the moment I started hiding texts. He said if I didn't leave you, I was just dragging you along out of guilt. That I wasn't brave enough to be honest. I stared at her like I was trying to recognize a face I'd lived with for years. And you agreed with him? I don't know, she said, her voice cracking. I don't know what I agree with anymore. I just wanted to feel like I mattered again. Something shifted in me then. Not forgiveness. Not rage. Just exhaustion. I'd spent so long trying to anticipate her needs, to interpret silences, to fill in blanks she wouldn't speak aloud. And now, finally, I was hearing the truth, and it tasted like ash. I'm going to a hotel, I said as I stood up. Please don't, she started, reaching out again. But this time I didn't flinch. You wanted space. Now you've got it. Don't call. Don't text. I need to be away from you before I forget what it feels like to be myself. And then I walked out the front door with nothing but my wallet and keys, leaving behind a house full of ghosts, and a wife who had already packed her soul and left months before her body did. But that night, while lying on a motel mattress under buzzing fluorescent lights, I discovered something on my phone that changed everything. It was an email. From him. The motel room smelled like bleach and old air conditioning. I lay there on top of the scratchy quilted blanket, the kind that looks clean but never really feels it, staring at the ceiling as if it would offer some kind of answer, some cosmic download of what the hell now. My phone was charging on the chipped nightstand, its screen lighting up every so often with missed calls from Corinne. 15 total. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again. But there was one notification I hadn't expected to see. An email. No subject at first. Just a name in the sender field that made my breath catch in my throat. Colin Myers. I opened it, hands slightly shaking, heart already pounding like it knew what was coming. But it didn't. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to read. The message wasn't long. It didn't have to be. Subject, let him go. From Colin Myers at Bleak&Co. To Elliot Barrow at gmail.com. Date, Tuesday 9:43 p.m. Elliot, I know who you are. I know this isn't how you wanted to find out. I didn't want to reach out to you, but Corinne is spiraling and she won't do what's necessary unless someone pushes her. So I'm going to say what she can't. She doesn't love you anymore. She's afraid of hurting you. Afraid of what you might do if she tells you the truth to your face. So instead, she's been dragging her feet and delaying the inevitable. I've told her over and over again that it's crueler to keep you in limbo. But she's soft. She still thinks she owes you something. She doesn't. Let her go, Elliot. Give her the space to choose the life she wants instead of making her choose between guilt and freedom. You're a good guy. I'm not writing this to insult you. But she's not yours anymore. She just hasn't figured out how to say it out loud. Colin. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour, rereading every line, every punctuation mark. The tone was so casual, so clean, like he was writing a memo about a meeting change. Like I was just a logistical problem he was handling on behalf of someone too emotionally fragile to take care of it herself. Let her go, he wrote, as if she was some bird I had in a cage. As if I was the one gripping too tightly. As if I was the obstacle. I wanted to scream. Not because of what he said, but because of how smugly right he seemed to be. Because even as I sat there, far away from my own house, my wife was still dominating my mind like she always did. She still had control. And he knew it. But it wasn't just the words that got to me. It was the timestamp. 9:43 p.m. That was 15 minutes after I'd left the house. 15 minutes. That meant Corinne called him. Right after I left. She hadn't even waited for my tires to cool. She picked up the phone and told him everything. maybe even forwarded him my number. That email wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was planned, encouraged, enabled. She didn't defend me. She outsourced the breakup. Suddenly, my stomach turned. This wasn't just a woman caught between two people. This was a campaign. A well-constructed extraction plan to swap out her old life for a newer, shinier one. And the man she had picked as my replacement wasn't just the rebound. He was the architect. He was the mouthpiece for her guilt, the middleman for her closure. And then something in my brain snapped into place. The lease, the timing, the journal entries, the way he used words like necessary and freedom, like he was talking about some hostage situation. He had been coaching her, preparing her, manipulating her under the guise of romantic rescue. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about control. And the worst part? I had no idea if Corinne even saw it happening. I lay back on the mattress, adrenaline burning a hole through my veins, and I realized something chilling. If I didn't confront this directly, I wouldn't just be losing my marriage. I'd be erased from the narrative entirely. And that's when I decided. I wasn't going to let Colin write the ending. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling of that motel room while the air conditioner rattled in the corner like it was trying to whisper something to me. My thoughts raced in every direction. What I should have said to Corinne, what I should have done differently years ago, what I would say to Colin if I ever stood in front of him. The version of me in my head was always stronger, more articulate, someone who knew how to win the room and deliver the perfect one-liner that leaves the other guy stunned into silence. But in real life, I've never been that man. Still, I had to see him. Not because I thought I could win her back. That delusion had already died a slow and humiliating death. No, I needed to see him because I wanted to understand how someone like him convinced someone like her to throw away a life that, while imperfect, wasn't broken. I needed to see what kind of man could infiltrate a marriage and then have the audacity to send an email titled, "Let him go." So I Googled him. It didn't take long. Colin Myers, 37, director of marketing at Bleak & Company. His company website had a photo of him standing with his arms folded, flashing that practiced smile that men like him wear like armor. You could tell he worked out. You could tell he got everything he wanted. There was even a quote under his profile that said, "Emotion drives behavior. Anticipate that, and you win." I stared at that line for a long time. Emotion drives behavior. I wasn't sure if it was marketing advice or a warning. The next day, I called his office and asked to meet him. I told the receptionist I was a client. She gave me a slot, 15 minutes. That's all I needed. When I walked into the lobby, he was already there. Crisp shirt, clean shaven, that same smile. He knew exactly who I was. Didn't even pretend otherwise. "Elliot," he said warmly, standing and offering a hand. "Didn't expect to hear from you so soon." I ignored the handshake. "Let's talk." He led me into a small, glass-walled conference room with 2 chairs and a carafe of water. When the door closed, the temperature in the room dropped by 10 degrees. He gestured for me to sit. I didn't. He did. "I assume you got the email," he said, as if this was just a customer follow-up. "I wanted to reach out before things got worse between you and Corinne." My jaw clenched. "That wasn't your place." He leaned back like he was settling into a podcast interview. "You're not wrong. But she was scared. She didn't want to hurt you. And I didn't want to watch her keep shrinking just to make you feel okay." I stepped closer. "You think I made her small? I loved her. I gave her space, support, loyalty. Everything." He nodded, almost sympathetically. "You probably did. You probably gave her all the things you were told a good husband gives. But here's the problem, Elliot, she outgrew it. People change. And you didn't." I stared at him, my fist trembling, but I didn't strike. I wasn't there to swing. I was there to see the man she chose instead of me, and he was exactly what I feared. Not a villain, not a monster, just a mirror. A man who knew exactly what strings to pull to make someone feel seen, needed, desired. Someone who weaponized words and timing and validation. "She's not a project," I said, voice low. "You don't get to fix her. You don't get to turn her into something and then pretend it was all her idea." He smirked. That same smile from the profile photo. "Maybe not. But she's not your wife anymore. And you need to come to terms with that. You were part of her past. I'm part of her future. We don't have to be enemies." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was disbelief. "You think this is about competition? About territory? You took a woman who was confused and turned her against everything that made her stable. You fed her doubts and called it clarity. He stood now, sensing the shift. You're making me sound like some manipulative genius. Corinne made her choices. You just weren't listening. I stepped toward the door, but before leaving, I turned back and looked him straight in the eye. You're right. I wasn't listening. I was too busy loving her to notice she wanted a new story. And maybe that's on me. But the way you inserted yourself, the way you positioned yourself as the solution to a problem you helped create, that's not love, Colin. That's strategy. One day, she's going to see that. He didn't reply. I left. When I got back to my motel, there were more missed calls from Corinne. More texts. One simply said, "Can we talk, please?" I stared at it for a long time. And then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The message wasn't sent to just me. It was part of a group chat. Me. And him. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't over. They wanted to talk. Together. I stared at the group text thread like it was some kind of cruel performance art. One message from Corinne. "Can we talk, please?" Followed by another from Colin. "We think a conversation might help you process things." We. Not her. We. That was the moment it all finally clicked. Not just the affair, not just the betrayal, but the fundamental rewiring of how I had existed in that relationship. I wasn't just being let go. I was being recast. They weren't reaching out to patch things up. They were reaching out to hand me my walking papers and offer me the consolation prize of maturity and closure. I didn't respond. Instead, I stood up, packed my bag, and walked out of the motel room into the rising sun. The sky was doing that soft gradient thing, lavender to gold, the kind of morning that always made Corinne want to stop and take a picture. But this time, I didn't think of her. I just stood there and breathed. I didn't go home. Not yet. I drove out of town, about 40 minutes east, until I found a diner with a sign so faded it looked like it hadn't been painted since the 90s. Inside, it smelled like coffee and pancakes and hardwood floors. It was quiet. No noise. No texts. No apologies. Just me, a mug, and a window seat. A waitress named Clara with gray roots and a New York accent took my order. She smiled without asking too many questions. I appreciated that more than I can describe. When I got back to the city that evening, I didn't go to the house. I went to my brother's instead. Told him everything. Every bloody detail. He didn't say much at first. Just let me talk until I was hoarse and hollow. Then he handed me a beer and said, "You stayed too long in a place that stopped feeding you. That's not weakness, Elle. That's hope. And there's no shame in hoping. But now you stop." That night, I finally texted Corinne back. Just one sentence. "There's nothing left to say. I release you." She didn't reply, and I didn't expect her to. 3 months passed. I moved out. Got my own apartment. Small, quiet, nothing special. But it was mine. I started going to therapy. Started writing again, which I hadn't done in years. I joined a community woodworking group because I missed making things with my hands that didn't fall apart. One afternoon, I found the courage to open a box I had shoved in the back of my closet. Inside was a photo of us from our wedding, a few postcards she had written me when we were long distance, and an old keychain from the first apartment we shared. I held each thing, not with grief, but with acceptance. That version of her, of us, existed. And it mattered, even if it didn't last. But here's the thing they don't tell you about endings. Sometimes, the exit wound is also the opening. I started smiling again. Not performative smiles. Real ones. The kind that creep up on you while you're pouring coffee or fixing a loose cabinet knob. I even met someone. Her name's Lila. I met her at the woodworking group. She builds furniture, has a laugh that fills a room, and eyes that don't flinch when you talk about your past. She doesn't try to fill Corinne's space because she made her own. And for the first time in years, I feel chosen, not tolerated. The other day, I passed by Carson's taproom, the place where I saw that kiss, where the unraveling began. I didn't look away. I didn't feel bitter. I just kept walking, hands in my pockets, head clear. Because I'm no longer angry. I'm free. And finally, I feel like I belong to myself again.